Welcome to DOS Won't Hunt. I'm Jean-Pierre Ruth with Information Week. And in this episode, we'll be taking a look at the National Institute of Standards and Technology's post-quantum cryptography standards that have been released recently, and trying to take a look at how much of a heavy lift or issue it might be for enterprises that want to continue to do business in this space. To actually comply with the new standards that have been put forth. Again, this is one of those topics where I need experts to speak to what's going on with that, and I'm very glad to have a very good full house of experts to be part of the conversation. Today we have with us Anand Kashyap, founder and CEO of Fortanix, Kristin Milchanowski Gilkes, Ernst Young's Global Innovation Quantum Leader, Michael Osborne, CTO for IBM Quantum Safe, Omar Santos, Distinguished Engineer with Cisco, and Volker Krummel, Post-Quantum Cryptography Chapter Lead with Utimaco. All of you, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so again, NIST has released these new standards for essentially the post-quantum cryptography future that we're looking towards. And I guess one of the things that to really kind of start off to look at is, will this require, to meet these standards, some heavy lifting on the parts of the enterprises and private sector folks to kind of achieve what has been put forth? Is this something that is going to be going to take a concerted effort, or is it something that might be not that challenging or what have you for folks? And Michael, I was hoping that you could kind of give us some kind of perspective on what you've seen from what NIST has put forward, and how this might when the rubber finally meets the road, kind of should try and make this happen.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So what NIST has in fact standardized are some very basic algorithms, so signatures and key exchange. So these are kind of like the lowest level building blocks. That's not really what you can start with very easily. So for enterprises, for example, to end up in a quantum safe state, essentially they will have to wait for those algorithms to be implemented in various protocols and standards, then implemented in libraries that support those new protocols and standards, then incorporated into products and services that use those libraries, meaning there's actually quite a long, it's not something that is going to be immediately possible unless you're a product developer making cryptographic products. There's going to be a whole series of things which need to happen before you can get the things that you need to become quantum safe. And some of those things will be simple. Some of them won't be so simple, because the fact of the matter is that many enterprises are not in control of a lot of what they operate. It's all third-party software, third-party network equipment. It's all other people's software. So our experience from the past has shown that, let's say, orchestrating all of your supply chain to actually give you what you need to end up to be in a quantum safe state, that's going to be the major challenge. It hasn't worked very well in the past with SHA-1 to SHA-2 migration or Y2K, but this time I think we're in a slightly better position, because we have learned there are other modern approaches to look at supply chain software, supply chain transparency. So it's a long journey, but I'm kind of hoping that we've learned a lot from the past, and we have some good tools and techniques to help us on our way.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Volker, how heard were the private sector elements, during the development of these standards? I'm kind of familiar with the process, but I just want to get a good sense of how much input was really being brought to the table, as these new standards were kind of kicked around and developed.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So Utimaco and I personally was involved into this process and the NIST process quite well. I can only say NIST did a very great job, very transparent process. The information was shared regularly. The concerns, the comments, and everything was heard by NIST and discussed on a fairly basis. So without, let's say, having the competition we typically see in the market in there. So it was a purely technical process, and we really enjoyed being part of that. We are also, let's say, contributing to the NIST PQC migration project, which is a project that's still ongoing to ensure the interoperability of all the implementations. Michael already mentioned, so as a vendor of cryptography, you need to be interoperable with all the market competitors to have the best experience for the customers. And this is still ongoing. And so the only thing I can say about this project is it's very well designed process, and the result is quite awesome from our perspective.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Kristin, since we are talking about technology space that is very much still in development, how much of a sense is there that the standard's been put forth that this is something that might change in short order as the car is still being assembled as we're going down the road in terms of the actual implementation of some of these technologies that we're talking about?
Well, I think that it's inevitable that change is just going to continue to happen. So I think we should be prepared for a continuous change process. Quantum is not fully realized, quantum computing, and so there's a lot to be discovered as the engineers are working on the hardware to get us there. So I would expect a lot of change. As far as the standards go, I echo my colleagues' points. The process was phenomenal of coming up to them, and there are still a lot of dominoes that have to fall for organizations to start implementing these standards. However, there are things that companies can be doing today to get ready for the quantum safe or quantum resilient type of platform. And those are things that when you approach it with a sound methodology, you can handle and incorporate the change. So those are the things like preparing your high value asset list, making sure that you're thinking through your most critical inventory needs of your cryptography keys, not all of them. I'm not a fan of inventorying all cryptography keys, but just your more important ones. Those are things that you can start doing that do take time for an institution to do. And those are things that will help them move along in this journey, regardless of what kind of changes might come in the future.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Michael, the CISO space, there's often talk of like there already being a lot of pressure that they're looking at, and others who are responsible for the security aspect of things. Do these standards that NIST is brought forth, does it bring more of a sense of clarity for the the kind of the road ahead, or is it just like yet another thing for those who are going to have to be responsible for compliance to be like, great, here's now more that we have to do, or does it again does it kind of give some clarity of like, okay, now I've got like a sense of what's down the road and how I can try to approach it?
So it's an interesting question. So a lot of CISOs that we talk to essentially are very busy, as you say. And so the last thing they need is another, let's say, worry on their table, which they need to prioritize against all of the other worries that we have today. I would say that there's a lot a CISO can do, essentially. And I think the argument that we found that works is the later you start, the more it's going to cost you, essentially. And a lot of the journey has a lot in common with a lot of other cybersecurity journeys. So if you have the right awareness, you can align a lot of what you need to do. For example, what was just mentioned about your inventorying and things like that. There's a lot of things you should be doing anyway which enhance your cybersecurity posture, which if you, with the right awareness, can just be tweaked to take you a good part on that journey, not as an additional cost, but as a small incremental cost. I'd add just one thing. A lot of CISOs actually have been using the lack of a published standard as an excuse not to look at it too closely. So what we do see is the one impact of the release of the standards is that's an excuse which has been taken off the table. So we do see quite a change in the last couple of weeks, in fact.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Omar, is there any sense that quantum cryptography might not be this ultimate game changer that we keep discussing, since it is something that's still, very moving, we haven't gotten there yet per se. What if we are essentially over preparing for the technology and the actual result of it actually under delivers, or are we pretty solid in confirming that, like, yes, this is going to be the game changing technology platform that we've been talking about?
Thank you for the question. And as a matter of fact, if you ask that question to 10 people, you're probably going to get 50 answers. And the reason for that is because, of course, there are challenges that could impact just quantum computer itself, right? That includes high cost, the complexity of the required hardware, limitations, scalability, probability, a whole bunch of different things, right? But the important thing here is that the potential threat that, for sure, quantum computers will actually, introduce for the existing cryptographic systems definitely justifies the proactive development of quantum resistant standards. And I echo my peers in here. NIST has done a tremendous job, because not only they have been transparent, but they have worked with the industry for quite some time with open forums, workshops, so many different workshops, so many different communications out. And in there, a lot of people, started to actually talk about, are we over preparing? Is it too early? Are we going to be able to change in the future? I can tell you that no software, technology, product, and even crypto system is immune to vulnerabilities. It's going to continue to evolve. But the potential threat posed by these future quantum computers to assisting cryptographic systems definitely justify this proactive development and standards.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Anand, were there any surprises that kind of came up when the NIST standards were presented? Were there things that were brought forth that were just like, oh, okay, that was not so? I mean, yes, there was a public review point, but was there anything that was just like kind of like caught your eye? And was there anything that you felt might have been missing that, like, hey, maybe this should be something that should be considered, again, potentially moving space going forward, but like, hey, this is something that might be brought to the table, further conversation?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I echo my colleagues' sentiments that NIST ran a very solid, robust, and very transparent process for the algorithm selection. There was a contest that was done where submissions were attracted, and they've been running for a while across multiple rounds. And in the end, the 3 algorithms that were released as standards, they were in line with what the broader community was expecting. So I would not say there was a big surprise in the choice of the algorithms. Of course, this is an ongoing process, and more standardization efforts will continue. If there was one surprise, I would say, and I would not say it's a surprise for the cryptographic community, but in terms of the technical implementation of the algorithms, there seems to be a preference towards encapsulation-based algorithms rather than encryption-based algorithms. And as I said, the cryptographic community understands this and they will appreciate it. But this has an impact for application developers, because the APIs will change in the way PQC should be implemented. There may be some impact to that. But I think kudos to NIST. They've run a very transparent process, and there were no big surprises.